Hi guys, welcome back. It's UK here. Doing a vid because Shawn Discoll has asked me to do a vid on RPGs that leap out at me, following a comment on one of his vids. Because what I said basically was, what do you look for in an RPG? And I said that I like a system that's not too simple, not too complex, and a setting that leaps out at me. And in his response he says, I think you like RPGs that has a similar feel to the 40k wargame you play. And am I way off? Yes and no. I do love the setting for the Warhammer 40k wargame, because there's just something so cool about it in my mind. Everything about it just conjures such vivid images in my mind that I can't help but be sucked into it. And when you read the novels for it, they've got some fantastic authors, both for the novels and for the fluff of the rule books and the army books and everything. Again, the images of what's going on just fit so well into my mind. That yes, that particular setting does leap out at me. Do I like RPGs that have a similar feel to that? Again, yes or no, it depends on the game. Trying to think of games where the setting leap out at me. The obvious one is Call of Cthulhu. I'm a huge fan of H.P. Lovecraft's writings. Although I don't actually run Call of Cthulhu in that sort of incredibly grim nihilistic approach. I run it more film noir sort of styly. But again, that game coupled with his writings again conjures such fantastic images in my imagination that it draws me in. But a good example actually to kind of show you here would be the two vampire games from White Wolf. A friend and I, way back in the very, very early 90s, were interested in picking up Vampire the Masquerade. It had been out, I think, for about a year. It was still on its first edition, and he wanted me to run it. And I remember reading through the book and actually going, I've got no clue here. The system makes sense, the system's fine, but I've got no clue on the setting. There was just not enough backstory, enough info on the fact that, yes, it's our world but darker, that sort of thing, but there was really nothing more I could add to it. So the game fell apart. We played maybe two sessions, one scenario from the back of the rulebook and one that I'd made up, and it fell apart. For about 4 or 5 years, I was at a wedding, and some friends and I were talking to friends of the bride and groom, and they were playing a Vampire Masquerade second edition game, and we were all big into vampire stuff at the time, movies wise and so forth, that we decided we'd give it another try. And I ended up picking up the second edition Masquerade rulebook and the player's guide and the New Orleans by Night sourcebook, because that's a big fan of the Interview with the Vampire film. That was where I wanted to set my game if it actually took off. And by this point there was enough setting that I was lured in, and we played Masquerade through until probably 2001, 2002, so for about 6 years. But I loved the setting. By this particular point the setting was rich. It had what people often grumble about, which is a meta plot. So in other words, each little book, as it moved along, moved the story along, moved what was going on in the world. You might read in one book that the Camarilla, the overarching, almost global political entity of the vampires, was attempting to take a city off of the Sabbat, which was the rival, almost bestial covenant. But 2-3 books later on, maybe another year since you read that, you would find out that they've actually managed to take that city, and so you had this living world And everything about what they came up with, the Methuselahs, the antediluvians, the whole jihad, the struggle between the ancient vampires using everybody else's pawns, the political aspect of it was phenomenal. I got really sucked into that as well, because at last the game had a background that I could get into and I could absorb. Now, when they changed the game to Requiem, I was like, yep, fair enough, we've had our time with Masquerade. I didn't particularly want to go over, but I figured, let's try it. And I've bought, up until the point where they stopped proper publishing, because I think everything's gone print on demand. And I've got other games that I played in. I bought all of the hardcover books, all the books that they did. But the setting's gone. They've left it, I want to say sandbox. You've got this idea of how the world works. It's a completely different setting, but there's something, that spark of life has left the game because the setting isn't there. And they've said that they don't want to do this. But I think I've run Requiem. I mean, Requiem's been out, what now? I want to say 10 years, but I don't think it's quite that. But it's almost about that. And I think I've run Requiem maybe, I don't know, a half dozen times. Whereas before Masquerade we ran almost, we ran every weekend for almost 6 years. And it's all because that spark isn't in the setting. It doesn't leap out at me. There's nothing to grab hold of and feel the imagination. So I think using those examples I've just given you, that's what I hope that kind of puts it across a little bit better. It doesn't necessarily matter what's in the setting, just providing that the designers, the writers, the developers have given a setting that's richly detailed and has something which binds it together and gives you these cool, or gives me anyway, these cool mental images that I can prey upon, almost literally in the case of Vampire, or play upon, to make my games better. Whereas if I have, here's a good example. I did a video back in for Halloween last year for the All Flesh Must Be Eaten zombie RPG from Eden Studios. It's a fun game. It's very rules light, which wouldn't normally sit with me, but I had a good GM when I first played it, so it's kind of grown on me. But I always like to run one-offs with that game. As much as I would like to run a zombie apocalypse campaign, I couldn't do it, because as much as I love zombie movies and I love that sort of, again, it's got some cool imagery, the worlds, if you want to call it that way, George A. Romero's world, whatever you want to call it, or the Resident Evil, whatever, they don't leap out at me enough to be able to want to run a game in it. Another good example is a difference, thinking of Same Old G's videos lately, is the difference between Cyberpunk and Shadowrun. I've run both of them, again, back early 90s. Cyberpunk we played for probably 6 months. And yes, it's alright, I kind of enjoyed running it, but the setting was fairly dull to me. There was, yes, it had the cool cyberpunk elements, but nothing, there was no, as I say, there was no spark. Whereas Shadowrun, I don't know, it's essentially the same game, but they've included a fantasy element. You have elves and dwarves and dragons and magic, but it's still basically the cyberpunk style game. But the way the world was written conjured these images. So that, for me, setting a system aside, is what I look for in a setting. If I'm going to pick up a new RPG, or a new setting if it's for an established game that has a more generic system. I hope that answers your question, Shawn. Thank you for asking, and I look forward to seeing the next part of the video if you go along with it. Anyway, thank you very much, and take care, and good gaming.